Hello everyone, welcome to Zero Developer. Today we will cover how to check data type of variables in unit test, how to test the argument constructor. We will create a .toString method, means we will override it, and then we will write the unit test for it. We'll also inherit the customer user from one interface, and we will write the unit test for it to make sure that the inheritance is there. Let's start with the first point, which is to check the data type of variables. If we go to the customer class, and we can check that the ID is int and the name is string. So to check that the data type of it, what we need to do is that we need to go to the customer test, and we will write assert dot instance of type, where the first parameter is the value which we want to check the data type of it. In our case this is ID, and then the type of it, so which is in our case int. We will do the same thing for name, but we will say string because we need as a string, and then we will of course need to change this to the name. If you will run this unit test, it should pass. As you can see, the unit test is passed. And let's change this one to double. And if we will run this unit test, it will fail and it will say that the expected value is int, but actually the data type is double. Now let's revert the changes. What we will do is we will just change the double to int here, and we will save it and we will run it again, and as we can see, the test is passed again. Now let's go to the second point, which is argument constructor. So let's create an argument constructor of the customer class. So we'll say public customer, and then we say int ID string name. ID is equal to ID, name is equal to. As we can see, we get an error in customer test because there is no default constructor. So let's create a default constructor. So what we will do, public customer, because I don't want to remove the previous test method. For the new one, for the argument constructor, what we will do, we will copy the same test method and we will make the changes. Instead of calling the name verify default, we will say verify argument constructor, and then we will assign the actual value to the variable, and we will change it to, instead of ID, we can rename it to expected ID, because we are going to compare it in expected value. And the same thing we will do for the name. So we will say expected name, and the name can be Ali. What we will do, we will pass this ID, expected ID, and we will pass expected name, which will be assigned to the name and ID. Let's remove these two lines as we are already verifying them. So we will just run the unit test, and as we can see, the unit test is passed. What you can do is that you can also compare the values here directly, and it will work the same way. But the best practice is that you should create a variable, you should pass it to the constructor as a parameter, or you should pass as a parameter to the method, whatever you want to do a act. So, and then you just compare it with the return value. So we will just rerun it, and as we can see that it's passed. Now the third point is that we will create that toString method, means we will override it in customer and then we will write the unit test for it. So let's jump into that. What we will do, we will just say override that toString, and then we will return $, and then we will say ID curly bracket ID, and then we will say name is name. We will save it. Now what we will do is we will copy the same thing again, and then we will say verify that toString. Now we will just change the values of the variables. So I will just call it Ali3, and we will create another variable which we will say expected ToString, and where what I'm expecting is I will write the same thing here, dollar and then ID, and I can copy it actually, so I will just copy it, assign it to this one, and instead of ID I will say expected ID, and then I will say name, and here what I will say, and we will move this one to a range because now this is not the act, and we will say var result is equal to customer.toString, and we will compare this result, sorry for the interrupt, we will say this result should be equal to the expected ToString, and then we should save the file, and then we should refresh our unit test, and then we should be able to run it, and as we can see this is passed. Now if I will just add a one space and try to rerun it, it will be failed. Let's revert the changes and run the unit test again, and it should be passed. Now let's move to the point number 4 where we need to do inheritance. So what I will do, so I will create an interface, public interface iCustomer, and then I will have one property, public string address get set, and then I will just copy this one and inherit the customer from it, and I will get an error, and then as I need to implement the interface I will just remove these because we are not really interested in the implementation of the property which is get it from iCustomer. We are just really interested to check that the customer is inherited from iCustomer. So what we will do, we will save the file, and then we will just go here and we will write another unit test. We will say test method, and we will give public void, and name should be check is type of iCustomer. And then what we will do, we will just create we need to follow the arrange act, and then of course assert. So what we will do, we will just create an instance of the customer class. We will say result new customer, and I will go for the default constructor, and then here I will say assert dot instance type of, and then we will say result, and we are expecting iCustomer, and if we will run this unit test, it should succeed. So let's refresh it, and then let's try to run it. As we can see, the unit test is passed. Now let's do to remove the iCustomer and save the file, and if I will run the unit test, it will say failed because it was saying the expected type was iCustomer, but now the type is customer. So let's revert the changes and rerun the unit test. I will push the code to GitHub repository so you can check it out. Thank you for watching.